I was well on my way into this project, and I realized there's a lot of valuable lessons I can share, so I decided to turn on the camera. I started by adding these stilts to extend the height of the chair in order for it to sit comfortably in front of a bedroom vanity. I covered the springs with a layer of jute canvas. Over the jute canvas, I've stapled on a layer of deck padding. Then I set over the original cotton and added a fresh layer of cotton to the top, and then I'll pull this all down with the new fabric. Fitting a cover on a round seat can be pretty challenging. I've started by centering a circle of fabric over the seat, temporary staples on each side. I've aligned my center references. When it comes down to making these relief cuts in here, it's really pretty simple and just a matter of doing your math. I'll measure the distance from the bottom of this rail up over to the fabric panel. Alright, we got 9 inches there, so I'll come up 9 inches on this fabric, and that's going to be the placement of the back rail. The distance from center to center on these uprights, measuring at the lower end of the rail, is 16.5 inches. The distance from my first chalk mark to the bottom of the rail is pretty close to 6 inches. Making sure the fabric's pulled snug from side to side. I'll make sure I'm on center. Half of 14.5 is 7.25. I'll also measure these distances straight up from the post to make sure they're equal at 9.5 inches. I'll chalk in a small mark here where the fabric meets this upright. I'll roll this fabric back and square things up according to my center reference line and the weave in the fabric. I'll start with this one closest to me. Flip it over. Looks like we need to put it about right here. Allowing the distance from the outside corner to the center of the upright, I'll put my reference mark right there. Measuring over 8.25 from my center line and making a pivot over to 6 should put me pretty much in line with that upright. I'm going to true up a little bit closer yet on the weave in the fabric. I'm going to make a straight line here in this weave. And I'm going to stop my cuts right here. Alright, that ought to pull in just fine. I'm left with plenty of fabric to pull down around this upright here, drop around the side, and there's plenty of fabric to work with there. I'll brush the lines in the fabric, get the weave squared up on all 4 centers, and start pulling it tight in place. I'm tracking the lines of the fabric as I pull this down over the curve. Without making any further cuts, this all pulled down nicely through the gutter. That's just a matter of removing temporary staples and pulling this evenly into place. Because the upper profile is slightly larger than the lower profile, as I pull this fabric down, I need to allow small gathers around the bottom. You need to keep these parallel to the face surface. Alright, trim this off, and that's a wrap on this seat. I hadn't planned on shooting video when I started this chair. My apologies for that. I've already gone ahead and laid out diamonds 5 inches by 7 inches. Tufting requires everything to be very straight and square with the world. I'm going to discard this original cotton, but I'll reuse this felt pad. I'll add 2 layers of cotton to the top of the felt padding. Open up these holes. I'll roll this up for some more lumbar support. Work it into the crevice. The first step in laying out the tufting is to measure for depth. I'll work this regulator through the padding to the frame and compress it just a little bit. Looks like 1 3/4 inches. Measuring from the original cover, the 5x7 base, they've made an allowance, a fold allowance, 9 inches by 7, which is basically 2 inches over the base diamond size. This will prove to be horribly wrong. I laid out a 5-inch by 7-inch diamond pattern. Then, according to the original cover cloth, they made the seam allowances at 9 inches for height. So let's see what happens with this. Push that up to the 9-inch mark. Keep in mind my padding is only 1 3/4 inches thick. We've got 2 3/4. We'll go this way and add in our 7 inches. That should balance at the same height. So this is a recipe for wrinkles and failure. To lay it out properly, I started with a strip and I pushed it up until I hit the 1 3/4 thickness that I'm after, and it measures out 8 inches. For the side-to-side measurement, I started by pinning down one end and pushing it up until it reaches the same height as the other strip. That measures out at 6 1/4 inches. I'll start my first row of buttons 6 1/2 inches from the bottom. I'll come up to 6 1/2, and I'll measure over my 6 1/4 for the next channel. Square that up. I'll measure up 8 inches for the second row of 3 buttons. Important to keep everything square. I'll allow, probably 8 1/2 inches to pull over the top. I'll tear off a cotton ball and I'll put it in here, and I'm just going to make a very simple knot going around twice here, and I'll take up all the slack, and when I get to that point I can take one strand and pull it tight. I'm just going to loosely snug this for now. I'll start pulling it in shape by working with the regulator and turning all of the folds downwards. This goes down, down, I need to work with this in a little bit. Push it underneath. Once I get these folds somewhat established, I can pull the buttons in tighter and work with them a little further. I'll push the regulator in at the base of the button, start working with this fold, just roughly get it in place, following the weave as best as possible. I'll start working this into the crevice and start shaping these other folds. I'm keeping the cotton on top of the frame as I pull down the fabric. I'm having a difficult time deciding how to finish off this heart. It looks like I'm probably going to have to resolve to a fold in the center. All right, that's a wrap on that tufting project.